Here we go. This says, may your green bean casserole be the greatest. Amen, brother. This says, I hate to say it, but C.J. Baxter's been a bust compared to what we were billed. We missed choice badly. Thank you very much. This says, if receivers catch the ball, run game will open up. We can go in more, drop a lot of balls. And you can't beat our A&M, a top 3 team in the country, dropping passes. That ain't going to work. We know that. But let me mention this. So college football playoff rankings are out. We know that. And not much change. Really, the big change is Oregon jumped over Ole Miss. But both teams play. Texas sitting at 16. You know, here Texas needs Michigan to lose to Ohio State on Saturday, and you're wearing your Michigan pullover there. That's bright.
It is.
That's the maze.
I made a bet with our part-time now Luke, who's a huge Buckeye, so he might be wearing this as of Tuesday, or I will be wearing.
That's the maize and blue Nike pullover.
That's as maize as it can get, right?
That's maize. That's bright.
But we have made
like
a bet.
You're working construction over there or something.
Yeah.
Michigan plays Ohio State. You'd like to see Ohio State end that 4-game losing skid and beat Michigan. That would knock Michigan down.
Yeah, it would. They'd be out.
Vanderbilt plays Tennessee. I think you'd be rooting for Vanderbilt to fall to Tennessee in Knoxville, which could happen.
Yeah, might as well get them out of the way, right?
Utah goes on the road to play Kansas in Lawrence. You know, but look, I'll say this. That's a good example of Utah. Utah gave up 500 yards rushing last week.
They did.
500, 472, and they still won the game.
And they won the game. Is crazy.
So the committee talks about eyeball test.
Right.
Playoff teams don't give up 500 yards rushing for crying out loud.
Yeah, I'm surprised there wasn't a lot of movement from that backwards.
And yes, Texas hasn't looked like a playoff team a lot this year, but if they beat the third-ranked team in the country, that becomes a new data point that they add to their resume, which that's going to put you over Utah, even if they win, in my opinion.
Yeah, if Michigan does fall to Ohio State, that's the best win in the country. Yeah, just plain simple.
Well, and Miami's ahead of you, but Miami's not getting in the tournament right now.
Right.
Because they're not going to put 2 ACC teams in this thing.
No.
BYU plays UCF in Provo. BYU's a challenge, and then you're rooting for Auburn in a big way in the Iron Bowl.
Oh yeah,
big way. And weird things happen in that rivalry game, and they've already fired their coach. And
they should have lost that last time they played at Auburn.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, it was a prayer.
Yeah,
right? Remember that one?
So that's who's ahead of Texas
Bond
directly.
Who called that?
That's who's ahead of Texas right now directly. So those are the things you're rooting for. But let me get into A&M a little bit, and then we'll get to Texas at the bottom of the hour. But for folks who are like, man, how has Mike Elko done this in year 2, 11-0?
Right.
And we'll get to the schedule part of it because that's where you should be optimistic if you're Texas. But Mike Elko in just a second here. Let me give him credit where credit is due. What's the key when you come in as a new head coach? First thing you have to do is hire an elite staff.
Right.
You have to make great hires.
Supporting cast.
And Elko has absolutely done that. You know, he brought Derek Miller with him from Duke to be his general manager, his talent evaluator. And we'll explain why I think that was such a great hire for him. But also major credit to identify Colin Klein. You know, I've talked about how one of the struggles Brett Venables has had at Oklahoma is he hadn't really had an offensive identity to what he wants his program to be since he got there. And if a defensive coach comes in, he's got to hire the right person to run the offense. Then it's got to work in concert with what you want, and that's the alignment. And Mike Elko's done that great because Colin Klein came from that smash-mouth K-State program, which is what he wants it to be. And he's really done a good job developing Marcel Reed as a second-year quarterback and making that a dynamic offense. But also, maybe the biggest hire they made was snatching Tommy Moffitt away from LSU, the strength conditioning coach. Moffitt has 4 national championships under his belt with Nick Saban along the way. And, all of a sudden, Brian Kelly doesn't need him. And A&M was like, we'll take him.
Yeah.
We'll take them. And now they are a much stronger team and program on the lines of scrimmage. So those hires were huge. But let's go back to Derek Miller bringing, they were at Duke together. And when you're at a mid-major like that, like Duke, you got to do a really keen job in the portal of identifying not just the star players like Carson Beck, but you got to find good players. And think about this. When you look at, we talk about the foundational positions in football. Left tackle, elite playmaking receivers, edge rushers,
the defensive line, right.
Well, look what they've done in the portal.
Yeah.
So their left tackle is a guy named Trey Zune, right? And he's a really good player. Because what I think Elko's done in a short amount of time is there was a ton of talent that Jimbo Fisher left there. Because Jimbo Fisher, the problem was not talent. They were recruiting at a high level.
Right.
They lost a lot of
recruiting
portal,
classes.
but they were putting great recruiting classes together. And so you take what's already there, and then you find where you're needy to be good immediately. So left tackle Trey Zune's part of that really good offensive line, and that's someplace that Jimbo Fisher was recruiting at a high level, and Mike Elko has continued it. But then they got into the portal, and at wide receiver, where they were last year, remember when they played Texas, and young, Marcel Reed had to try to win the game as hero ball because the receivers couldn't open. Go back to watch A&M play Notre Dame and Texas last year. the receivers could get no separation.
Zero.
I mean, they were and against really good secondaries, and Texas had an elite secondary last year with Makuba and Jade Barron and Michael Tapp. They were elite in the back end.
They were Joe Schmoes last year.
Yeah, and well, they went and got Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. Now, those weren't huge names, but Concepcion was at NC State. Craver was at Mississippi State, and they identified those two players. Those two have combined for 99 catches, 1,600 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Well, we need an edge rusher. We're losing our top defensive lineman to the NFL. Remember Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, all those dudes off to the NFL. Well, they went to Bowling Green and found a kid named Cassius Howell.
Yeah.
And he's 11 and a half sacks, and he's now on NFL radars. That's a great job of evaluation and scouting in Bowling Green, middle of the country. They went to Kansas State and found a cornerback named Will Lee, who's got 6 pass breakups and a pick. He's become their best cover corner. They went into Iowa State and got a big defensive tackle who's played great, the big Needham on the interior. He's got 5.5 tackles for loss and a sack and a half. So they did a great job evaluating mid-major talent in the portal that have come in and not only become good players, they're cornerstone players at key positions for them that they needed. So how do you take the next step? That's how you do it. And then you coach them up, and Mike Elko's done a great job of that. So credit. There's also the issue, and this is a never-ending conversation. I don't know that there's an answer for it, and that's the imbalance of the schedules. Like as Texas got criticized for last year, remember the narrative coming out of College Station was, man, Greg Sankey and the SEC just gave the Longhorns a gift in their first year, the easiest schedule. Because why? Texas dodged the top of the conference, and they played the bottom of the conference last year, and they mopped up on it. And then when A&M fell apart in November, they got to beat them at the end of the year in College Station. Well, look, there is no doubt that A&M was dealt a good hand. They went on the road and beat Notre Dame to start the year. And then they were very fortunate to do so. There was a bobbled snap and a last play of the game, 41-40 kind of ball game that could have gone either way, but they won it.
Their best win.
Far and away.
Yeah.
Because in the conference, the Aggies have beaten Auburn, fired their coach.
Yep.
Florida, fired their coach. Arkansas, fired their coach. LSU, fired their coach. Samford, by the way, they just beat them, fired their coach.
At 1-11 now.
They also beat Auburn, and they also beat Mississippi State. They also beat Missouri and South Carolina, who have not yet fired their coach. But those 7 teams are combined 11-39.
That is the bottom of the barrel.
In the SEC.
Legit, the bottom.
Not their fault. Playing the hand you're dealt.
Right. Got to play your schedule,
but
right?
That's much more friendly than Georgia, who played Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, all tournament teams, right? Georgia's played the best teams in the conference.
Right.
At Tennessee, Bama, Ole Miss, and Texas. OU has faced Bama, Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee as well.
Right.
Bama has had to play at Georgia, at Tennessee, home to Vandy and OU. Texas has had to play Ohio State in the non-con plus OU and Georgia. That's advantage A&M. So how are you 11-0? You still had to navigate the grind. But when you're not playing the top of the conference at all,
right?
Like not one of them, home or road, and you get some good fortune where
like that
LSU at the time is coming off a loss to Vanderbilt, and there's a lot of infighting, and they're falling apart as a team.
And they're at Death Valley, and that's the game that broke the camel's back, right? I mean, seriously,
right? And the night game at Death Valley becomes kind of the end of the funeral for Ryan Kelly. And that was it for him, and his team quit on him essentially.
And credit to the team for doing that, but 100%. Just not the same team as we thought coming in after they beat Clemson, right?
Right, and you go on the road and you play Missouri with a third-string quarterback,
right,
who's a true freshman who was way in over his head. That's good fortune because bad luck for Missouri. The guy that was competing with Bo Perbula for the starting job at Missouri got hurt during fall camp for the season, and then Perbula gets hurt.
Right.
So you get the advantage of that. And again, those are – so how are you – but does it mean they're 11-0 and Texas is 8-3, but they're unbeatable? This will be far and away the best team that A&M has played. Most talented team A&M has played since the Notre Dame game.
Yeah, I was say the only other game that you can somewhat compare is Notre Dame, and that's C.J. Carr, who's looked really good. His second game playing as a quarterback.
Again, not their fault, but that's a different animal.
That's a good win. But.
Whereas Texas, to their credit, they've looked sloppy a lot at times, but they've played the elite competition at the top of the conference, like Georgia. They've beaten Oklahoma. They beat Vanderbilt, who's one of those really quality middle-of-the-pack teams in the SEC right now. They played Ohio State toe-to-toe and know what that's like. So Texas has seen light competition more recently. A&M just played Samford. They played South Carolina the week before that, and were down 30-3 because if you go back and watch that game, you could say A&M was sleepwalking early. But what I saw was, they didn't bring their A game to start the game, but South Carolina has some elite dudes on their D-line and at quarterback and at wide receiver, and those guys at the beginning of the game were getting off against that A&M team. and they made the adjustments, and there's a reason why South Carolina is at the bottom of the conference this year. And Texas is much more A&M's much more talented than South Carolina, and they come back and, to their credit, win that football game. But Texas is loaded with elite talent, right? That's where Texas is, and that's why it's been a frustrating year for the Longhorn fans, because it's just been sloppy. Well, if Texas plays a clean game in front of their home crowd, play anything like they did last week against Arkansas offensively, and Anthony Hill back on defense can bring some continuity there and get you back to playing that level of defense, or even close to it, that you were playing early and middle of the year. Again, it's got to be the Oklahoma game.
Yeah.
It's a rival.
That has to be the recipe.
And you've got to play with elite intensity in the trenches. And if you do, much like the Oklahoma game where Texas was an underdog, or they win favored in that game. I think it's about the same. They went in favored against Oklahoma in that game, if memory serves, because it
was a pick 'em at the end of it.
It was a pick 'em when they kicked off, and that's because the quarterback was hurt.
Correct.
And John Mateer came back.
But yeah, before they even said he was active, Texas was favored by a couple.
Yeah, so that's where it is. I've given A&M huge credit. I said when Mike Elko was hired, I think he's a great hire. He's a substance hire. He hired a great staff, and this is going to be great because it's a top-ranked matchup here on Friday night, and it's going to continue to be.
Oh, 100%.
As long as Sark's here and Elko's there.
Agreed.
And now Brett Venables has Oklahoma heading in a good direction, so all three. And it looks like LSU's about to hire Lane Kiffin, which is, by the way, why Arkansas can't find a coach. Do you realize that Arkansas was said no to by James Franklin? And now Eric Morris, the coach at North Texas, said, no, thank you, Arkansas. I'll go to Oklahoma State.
Go to Stillwater.
Because I don't want to mess with that surrounding cast. I don't need to deal with Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and LSU every year. No thanks. I'll go to Oklahoma State where I can win 10, 11 games in the Big 12, much more friendly. If I get things going and find me a quarterback and bring Drew Mestemaker with me.
I was going to say, what if he brings Drew?
Yeah.
I think he might.
So
it's a package deal.
That's a problem for Arkansas. What are they going to do now? Because I mentioned Matt Campbell. Maybe Matt Campbell's looking at going,
maybe Penn State's calling Matt Campbell, as they probably should.
They should call Matt Campbell. And
Terry Smith's fighting for his job.
Don't forget Memphis and Ryan Silverfield were in the mix with that.
Yes.
Apparently, no one wants the Arkansas job because it's getting the label, as Bobby Burton called it last hour, an unwinnable spot.
Not an easy spot to be in.
Whereas if you're in a conference like the Big 12 or even the American Conference like Memphis,
right?
Yeah, I'll stay here. I'll stay here.
Yeah, there's a shot at the playoffs.
I don't need to be button head because think about it. Arkansas, this point of their rotation, will be playing Texas every year.
Yep. Slotted in.
A&M.
I believe LSU.
LSU. No thanks.
No.